Hello, one and all, and welcome to the Sunday Night Live. Yes, we're going to be talking about dimensions and the dimensional shifts, basically. What's going on in the dimensions and the dimensional shift. I think we all sort of feel it of what's going on at the moment. It's been building up for some time. Because it's been building up for some time, I think we're all coming to the understanding that there is something under the surface that is going on. So, I wanted to go into that. So I think, we're going to be talking about dimensions. We're going to be talking about in multi-dimensions. We're going to be talking about as well, what does dimension mean? How does it play out in energy and so forth? Let's start off with something really simple. So dimensions. When we talk about dimensions, obviously we hear people talking about going into the fifth dimension and stuff like that. But as I said, I think it's multi-dimensional. It's like when people take ayahuasca and stuff like that, they talk about going into another dimension. So I think it's good to clarify what we mean by sort of dimension. And I think this Earth itself is in a solar system where we are in the third dimension. And within that third dimension, we have various chapters. And I did this on, and this comes back to that sort of tablet that I was looking at earlier on over the weekend. Yesterday, I think I did a video about that, about the tablets. And we've gone through 4 episodes of human existence, and we're now going into the 5th one. And this is where I can understand where people talk about being in the 5th dimension. The Earth itself is hiya, morning, all in Australia. Yeah, morning, all in Australia. Love to see people turning up. Yes, so, that's where I can understand where we're talking about the 5th dimension. And you could say the 5th dimension in the human existence. And we're going to go into that a little bit later on. But the Earth itself is at this present time in the 3rd dimension. We're in the physical world. And, we have to recognize that. And I think that's really important. So, we're going through a major shift, major change in dimensions. But at the same time, we've got to put that into context with everything that is going on around us. So we've got the physical dimension, which is the 3rd dimension of the planet Earth. We got the spiritual dimension, which is the 5th dimension, which we're going in from. And then we have the physics dimension, where we go into the quantum mechanics and so forth, where we have a multitude of different dimensions. And I can understand all of those sort of aspects of it all, and understanding that one dimension will be dependent upon the previous dimension. So, we have to realize that this is like an evolutionary sort of step. So I think it'd be a good idea to just have a quick look at what's been going over the past 4 sort of episodes, as it were, which we can see in multitudes of aspects, such as Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, sort of like the pyramids and so forth. That, as far as I can tell, comes from one dimension. A bit like those iron rods that we find in India, where it was a different type of technology. And I think we're coming back to that technology at this present time, at the moment. And we'll go into the technology side of it all. And understanding that the human race has gone through a process of evolution, physical, spiritual, technological evolution 4 times already. And each time, we can talk about the great floods and so forth that went in the past, but there's also, sort of Atlantis and so forth. We've been through various different dimensions here. And we're now going into the 5th dimension, or the 5th chapter, as it were, within this dimension. And this 5th chapter we can see being predicted also in things like Celtic crosses. Like, on a lot of Celtic crosses, they'll have spirals on them, and 4 are going one way with the 5th going the other way. And this comes back to the idea of the 5th element of love and so forth, if you've seen the film and things like that. And understanding this is, how do we apply ourselves in this new dimension? And this new dimension, or this new chapter we're going into, which is the sort of like the fifth version of the human evolution, is involving the physical, the world, as it were, but also involving the physical as in technological advancements or technological exploration, and also the exploration of spirit that is connected to those technological advances. And I think this is where we're coming into a moment, and this is what the shift is all about, as far as I can tell, is that we have an opportunity here to either liberate ourselves in the coming future, or to quite literally sell ourselves to slavery. And I think that's quite important to understand, and it's a conscious decision that we're going into at the moment. And as we go into that conscious decision, this is why I think that out of the messages from energy and so forth, that I was talking about making steps forward that you can't take back. And it's a little bit like that we're sort of, when you consciously make a decision to step forward, because it's conscious, we can't go back on it. And so this fifth sort of chapter is how we consciously engage with this shift, which is going on. Now, there is also an energetic shift that is going on, and this all has to do with pole shift. This has to do with, solar cycles and so forth. This is what the ancients would call prana energy or chi energy. It's the universal force, as it were. And that universal force is going through an inversion within itself. And that is what the pole shift is all about. And that pole shift has really been, it's a perpetual thing in a way, because it's like a pendulum that sort of swings from one side to the other. So we're perpetually in a pole shift in theory. But if you look over the past, even just the last 100 years, and the advancements that the human race has done in forms of technology and so forth over the last 100 years is phenomenal. And this has been leading up to this point here of an engagement of the spirit or consciousness within the technology that we are developing. So this is AI and so forth. And I think this is a time as well. Okay, there's another thing I'd like to just quickly touch on here, and that's all about going into the age of Aquarius. So an age, and when JC was on the Mount of Olives, he didn't say, I will be with you to the end of time. He said, I will be with you to the end of the age. And that was the moment where he fed 5,000 people, get this for figures, right? 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves, right? Now, the 2 fish symbolizes Pisces. So we've gone through that Pisces scenario, and its opposite sign is Virgo, and Virgo holds those 5 sheaves of wheat, like the 5 loaves, and that's feeding 5,000 people. And that is like those 2 dimensions put together, making 5,000 years. You have the opposite and the Pisces and the Virgo. And now we're moving into the time of Aquarius, which I think this is it. I think it's like a pendulum thing. So you can't say this day here we moved into Aquarius. You can more likely say this is the period here that actually Aquarius has more effect than Pisces did. But it's a gradual transition. Like people who are born on the cusp of a star sign, sometimes you feel a little bit, I'm quite close to the cusp between Capricorn and Sagittarius, and I could have I've got touches of Sagittarius about me, I think. You can definitely have touches of that other sign if you're closer to the cusp, as it were. And I think this is very true what is at the moment. We've moved from the Pluto in Capricorn into Aquarius. And if you look at what's going on with the lunar eclipse, and then followed by the the equinox, and then followed by the solar eclipse, I think this is the pivot point where we really do move into the age of Aquarius. So it certainly is it is a time of change, and I think we all recognise that time of change. Okay, hello from Canada. So hello, Suli. I think that's right. Is that Suli? Diffretas. Excuse me if I'm murdering your name. I do apologise. Lynn, that Pisces scenario was interesting to us Capricorns. Very happy it's finally over. Yeah, Capricorn is one of those interesting signs. As I think every sign's interesting, but it's like Capricorn and Sagittarius are the only two signs that are made out of two different things. Capricorn's half goat, half fish. Sagittarius is half horse and and shooting his arrow up and stuff like that. And Capricorn is the connection between the water and the earth, and Sagittarius is the connection between the air and the fire. Basically, that goes between the two. I think it's in the age of Capricorn that you had animals that came out of the sea, or the sea regressed and everything like that. But that's another long story. So we're going into this. We just get back to our Aquarius, but hello to everybody. We're going into this age of Aquarius, and the opposite sign of Aquarius is that Leo. Now, Leo, a lion, is all about confronting one's doubts and being very sure about oneself and so forth. And whereas Aquarius, where we've gone from JC to John the Baptist, who is that water bearer, that person who is the air side of Aquarius, so that is the main dominant side, is the side of hello there, White Feather. How you doing? How you doing? Lovely to see you. The Aquarius thing of John the Baptist. The air side is washing away your sins. It's a spiritual sort of process. And then on the other side of Aquarius, you have that water physically washing it away. And it's making everything pure, getting rid of all doubts. And I think this is what we're going to see, particularly in this change at the moment that we're going through with the lunar eclipse, the equinox, and then the solar eclipse. I think it's really pushing us into from Pisces, and the lunar eclipse was in Pisces, from Pisces into Aquarius, where this is where we come on to what I would call is the common sense revolution. And I've been calling that the common sense revolution. I've been warning about it. I've been talking about it, I reckon, for about the last 2 years in some of the collective readings and so forth. This is how we should engage in the shift. If we really want to have a co-creating society, which we can excel way beyond our actual imaginations at the moment, if we engage in it in a common sense attitude. Whereas if you've got common sense, if you approach something, you're no longer getting pulled from the extreme. And say, like with technology, with AI and so forth, if we take a common sense approach to it, it can actually help us rather than hinder us. It's like television had the great possibility to really help educate and bring, the human race together, not just in one country, but it ended up as a tool of advertising and, manipulation and mind control in a way, a bit like the internet is now. And everything, has great potential, but we have to consciously decide to engage in it. And I've seen that in the readings, in the weekly readings, that this conscious decision of stepping into the light, and also from the messages from energy, that this conscious decision about stepping into the shift where we can start creating the definition or the reality that we so desire to live by our daily action. Now, I've got, my kids are grown now, like a lot of us, and they've flown the nest. I've got one in Oz, another one in the Middle East, and another one is round here with me at the moment, ever. But it's like, our kids is what we're building for the future with our conscious sort of like decisions. And if we don't consciously, with our common sense, help our children to understand their engagement in this technology and so forth, we will be living by the rules of technology rather than by common sense. And this whole shift as well is accompanied by a multitude of different things in the spiritual world, where I've noticed that the karmic block, I've talked about this a lot on the channel. The karmic block has changed from a block into a more like a hexagon rather than a square block, and it's more sort of like a lava lamp, which is a lot more sort of electrical and stuff like that, simply because we've got to adapt to the technology that's coming through at the moment, that that needs a quicker reflection upon what we've actually done at the moment. So the engagement is for us to take. We have to consciously engage in it. And how can we do that on a everyday basis? I would, first things first, try not to believe everything you see on the telly or the internet and everything like that, or in the papers. I'm not saying don't believe it either. What I'm saying is make sure you do your own research and come to your own conclusions, and never be dependent upon one thing or another. Taking me, for example, as well, I trust you to do to explore life, because together we'll come together with an idea that is much more in tune with a harmonious evolution than a destructive evolution. So in the past, that has already happened. There's myths about certain conflicts that ended up being, sort of like nuclear, as it were, across history and within the human race. And we saw that you can see that within the Tibetan stuff, and also within the Tibetan stuff, but also within sort of the Egyptian sort of stuff, technologies that we used before that we have now, but we have an opportunity to take this even further. The question is do we have the technology, and this is where we're going into, the technology which is at the level of Atlantis, for example. And this is where we come into old sites such as Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids and so forth. I'm convinced that they were used in a way to channel the universal vibration and to use that energy in an electromagnetic form, like Tesla, to for electricity and so forth. The funny thing is that if this is the human history, and this is where at the same time, when we're coming into the age of Aquarius, we're also coming to the idea of truths, and you've got to be prepared for the truth. And as we come into to understanding the truth of what actually has happened to the human race over a great deal of time, we can actually see where we went wrong. Therefore, we don't have to repeat it. So I'm convinced that there's not going to be a major conflict that's going to be the destruction of the human species. I'm convinced of that. I think everything that goes on in the world at the moment, I just know that's not going to be the final card, which I think most people understand. Really, if you took the globe as the human population, most of us understand that those sort of conflicts are not worth the paper they're written on. Do you know what I mean? And so I think there's a great opportunity to do other things apart from that. Always great to hear your chats about our evolution. Oh, thank you very much, White Feather. Yeah, it's very much within the realms of what I feel. Good. I think everybody feels it. This is it. When I started doing healing, I grew up in London, and I started going to a spiritualist church where there was people doing seances and so forth. I used to sneak out when I was a kid, when I was about sort of 10, 11, 12, something, 10, around that same age. And I should sneak off to this corrugated iron church where they used to have sort of spiritual practices and everything like that. And but I grew up in London, so I had my feet very much on the ground. And then I started doing healing and stuff like that, hands-on sort of stuff when I was sort of 16 and stuff. And then I sort of exploring a lot of things. Long story short, when I started doing healing over here, the idea was that I would like it to be like a normal thing to do, as much as it is normal to go and see, your GP or something like that. Because I think there's certain aspects that people who deal in energy in regards for healing can look at life in the opposite side to what the GP can, and I think they're very complementary actually. And I thought that, and that's why. So I think everybody feels this change, White Feather, and I'm totally agree with the idea that there is concepts that may seem really, really massive, and even if it's like quantum mechanics and so forth, they may seem massive, but when you bring them down to every day and what do we do on an everyday basis, that's when we can really do the change, and we can start realizing that those big, massive concepts actually become very normal. I forgot what program I was watching. I was watching something. I was watching some sort of video, and they were talking about time travel, and they were saying time travel can only exist once you create the machine to do time travel. So people can't travel back to a time where the time machine did not exist on the earth. Do you understand what I mean? So the moment we create that, and that's what people say what CERN is all about, which is equivalent of the modern day, or the modern day pyramids, or Stonehenge, or Göbekli Tepe. And Göbekli Tepe, if we go back to Göbekli Tepe, I've been doing quite a lot of research on that. I think it was Stephanie was talking about it, mentioned it in a comment, and yeah, I'm gradually getting it all together so I can put it in place with everything that goes on around in the universe, as it were. And there definitely is this whole sort of shift that's coming up with this. With the hieroglyphs or the animals and stuff that they see on the pillars in Göbekli Tepe. And it does point to a certain time. And when you look at Göbekli Tepe, I don't know if you know anything about Göbekli Tepe. You should go and have a look at it. It's quite an amazing thing. There's lots of programs on it and stuff like that. And they followed like the dog star, Sirius. And that used to be the old North Pole. And so this was pre-pole shift. So there's a lot. This is what we're going back into at the moment. And as they built things, they built it and changed the orientation slightly. So it gives it a timestamp. And that was really beautiful because with all the other stuff within Göbekli Tepe, from that timestamp of that pillar, you can see what times they're talking about in the future. So it's really interesting, and it could, I think it was used a bit like CERN, or what's the other one up in Canada? You'll know, White Feather. What's that big square? It's HARP. That's the one. Thank you. I knew I could hear you telling me. It was harp is a similar sort of thing in the way in which they use like you could use sort of like the pyramids, or you could use Stonehenge, or Göbekli Tepe, or places of that such, to channel the Earth's energy, to use it in formidable ways. And they're often, you can find them, a big signature tune to that is they often place them upon springs, because you need that water to be drawn up through the thing. Just heard yesterday on a podcast that they found depictions of DNA strands and sperm on those pillars. Right, okay. I can get that. I think it could well be the idea. Okay, so on the what I think they're trying to say there, that through an intervention from elsewhere, so we're talking about Adam and Eve. I've already talked about this, but that's where we get our alien DNA, because we have a part of our DNA which is alien DNA, and that's probably what they're talking about on there. I'll have to look into that a little bit more sort of closely, but really, there's loads to get out of Göbekli Tepe. There's no doubt about it. A lot of understanding about not only our past but also our future, the two sides of it. And this is what I mean about being conscious about applying ourselves in the future. We can, if you look at stem cell, or what's it called? Genosequencing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen anything to do with that, but that's, it's modernizing the human DNA in a way. And maybe the intervention is coming from outside and it's coming from us, but it's very possible that we could be playing with the human genome, that actually that what makes an evolution. There is another way in which that can happen, is also where they get the change of the vibration that comes from the sun. And it's a bit like, if you imagine, it's like a tone that comes from the sun. And if that tone changes, have you ever seen those things that they can make float in air, little balls that they can make float in air because of different sound that they put on it? And if you change the frequency of that sound, you can shoot that ball off somewhere. And, the solar system could quite literally just take a planet and go and shoot it off. It's very possible. But, so I think there's also a degree of certain changes of the DNA structure that comes in from changes within the prana energy that's coming through the sun, which then comes through the earth and then comes through us. And that will change us enormously. I'm involved in a company which restores and wakes up our dormant stem cells. Wow, cool. Excellent. It is absolutely amazing. It is absolutely amazing. There was a really good play documentary about the first test tube baby in the UK that was on the BBC. That was quite amazing as well. We have been given free will, and there's things that make very good common sense. The only thing that I think we need to, and this is where we need to bring it back down to here and now. So as I was saying, I've got kids, I've got dogs, a dog, that's in life. We've all got to go down the road and go down to the local market or whatever, get food and what have you, pay for the heating. There's a lot of stuff let's get it back down to sort of common sense here. And, with that free choice, we have to also, everything else has to change at the same time. We can't go into a new dimension with the same system of governance that we've had for the last 400 or 500 years. It does need to change, and it needs to change with a different type of consciousness, which will allow us to approach all of these subjects, such as dormant stem cells and everything like that. There's another thing as well. I was teaching. I had one of my students that one of my apprentices that is now they're now doing healing and stuff like that in France. But they were talking about stem cells, and they were talking about it's difficult to get stem cells out of the body because we don't have the original stem cells, as it were, and this is what that dormant stem cells could be all about. And I just kind of went, and then we were talking. The person went on to wisdom teeth and why wisdom teeth. And I've never opened up a medical book in my life. I just look at things energetically, and it sort of gives me the general information. I can go into finer detail, but I said, these are when your full, your wisdom teeth normally come to the surface and everything like that. And I was saying, I think actually the reason we call them wisdom teeth is because we're coming of age, obviously, but also at the same time, I think they actually carry within them original stem cells. And I've done this big thing with my student. Wrote a whole report on it, and then I sent it to him, and because I thought I better check that out, check it out whether that's true or not, and I went looking at it, and Japanese doctors had found like 6 months before, 3 months before, whatever it was not a long period, that actually you can find stem cells within the wisdom teeth. So it's a conscious decision that we're making. That everything has to happen at the same time. And that's why I think truths are going to be the driver of this dimensional shift. The understanding, once we see things truly for what they are, we can make common sense decisions about things. So I think truth about our history, what we've done, and what we've done to one another as well. We obviously all know, we all have a vague understanding of what happened during the Second World War, and I think that's, as much as it's a horrible thing, it's actually probably serves us greatly in the future to remind us never to do anything so stupid like that in the future. So, I think the past has a lot to teach us about this sort of common sense evolution. This evolves a patch which reflects our own light back into our body, and magic happens. All right, okay. It's all light and energy. Okay. It's all light and energy. We are amazing. We are amazing. We are amazing. Capable of amazing things. Yes, we are amazing and capable of amazing things. Funny you should say that, Lynn. I actually had this very conversation with energy about sort of like 2 hours ago. And the problem we have in being actually fulfilling our amazingness is the fact that the volume of energy is not, we don't have enough volume of energy at the moment, and it's not strong enough. I think the energy of the Earth, the energy of the solar system, the energy of the human aura and so forth was much more powerful in the past than it is actually at the moment. And that's because we are dependent upon the energy that is around us. So I think we're actually very limited of what we can do, because we need to go through this common sense, seeing the truths for what they are. And then we can be realistic about what we can actually do with our energy. Which I think we can do amazing things, Lynn. I agree with you. I think we have huge potential. Way much more than any other sort of entities from elsewhere. That may seem really egotistical, but I think we do have this heavy potential to actually contribute not only to this solar system, this planet, but also to the greater universe. I think we've got a huge amount of things to help the universe with. And I think we're actually helping. I think in the future, we're the ones that are going to be helping the other entities than them actually helping us. That's my take on it. Another thing with energy as well is that makes sense. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's going to be incredible as more of us wake up. Yeah, because that's when you create. If we're all vibrating at, say, like a C chord or a do chord, depending on where you are in the way of musical worlds. If we got more and more people resonating at that frequency, then surely that will then become the normal frequency as we go forward. And yeah, people are waking up, and I don't think you should try and wake other people up. I think let people wake up at their own accord. But it's the momentum is becoming more and more. It's like the old idea that you have a herd of sheep and you've got several dogs around them. And the thing is with dogs guarding sheep, when one sheep breaks loose, the dogs won't chase after that one sheep because they'll lose all the other sheep. So they let that one sheep go. And one by one, eventually, there's more sheep outside the circle of dogs than there is in the centre of the circle of dogs, and that's what's happening. So I think we need to let people wake up at their own speed, because waking up can be horrendous. I certainly, when I woke up fully, because I was pretty conscious back in the 80s, 40 years ago. When I woke up, it was, I felt like I'd been kicked out of bed by the big cheese. It was a real eye opener. Wasn't the easiest of times, but hey ho, you know what I mean. It was very interesting at the same time. So yeah, going into this conscious dimension, we have to put down sort of like, it's almost like a Nine of Swords scenario. Nine of Wands scenario, that we have to have healthy boundaries. So we can see, how far we're going and what we're sort of, getting involved with. I was going to finish that thing about energy. The thing about energy is you have this point of inversion with energy. And this is where, if you find that point of inversion, that's when you can redirect the energy. It's like if you had like a sort of mirror that's a convex mirror. If you've got it angled in a certain way, you'll see none of the light that comes off it. And you've got to find that point where you can redirect the energy within to the person. And it depends on what sort of energy you want to deal with or want to have within your body and what you feel is good for you emotionally and so forth. But yeah, sounds interesting work. It should be interesting to see how that sort of develops, really. You could concentrate on the wisdom teeth. I kept mine. If you have your wisdom teeth out, keep them. I think they'll be worth something in the future. We're consciously going into this whole new dimension, which I think is the age of Aquarius. It's time to let the sun in. Let the sun shine. So, yeah. Do we have any sort of like other questions and stuff like that from that? It's been obviously lovely to see everybody. I'd love to see everybody. It'd be really quite nice, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? But we'll have to sort something out there at that sort of front. Do you have any other, not just questions? What do you think about it? Have you got any ideas of how we should engage in this change of dimension, as it were? I think personally, as I'll put my coin in the ring or whatever it is. I think we definitely need to get our heads around sort of governance and the control. I think we need to be a lot more implemented within that. And I don't mean there used to be a form of governance in Greece that was like 400 BC or something like that, where you didn't actually vote for your local representative. They were chosen by lottery. So you didn't have to obey a certain party or ideology. You just used your common sense when talking about it, and then the administration would present you with a situation that needs to be discussed and organised. Within the group, you discuss and organise it all, and then the administration implements the decision of the gathering, the Senate or whatever it was called. But it just means that, and with our technology we have these days, I think that's actually a really good way of doing governance, where it's like jewelry service, and we employ people who work within health to be health ministers. I reckon you should have more than one, so you can you can weed out a lot of the corruption and so forth. But you'd be employing people who know what they're talking about. There's no point asking me, how to run the the taxation service or the armed service, because I'm not like that. I don't really get my head around that. You're better off employing someone who knows what they're doing and what they're talking about. And I think that's where we can become a lot more, rather than talking about sort of like, what this person did at this concert or whatever, you know what I mean, to do with the hype of celebrity and everything like that. If we started more concentrating on kind of going, let's get involved a lot more, so then therefore we can do a lot more with our spirit, with our energy, with our technology, with a lot of things in life. It could be phenomenal what we could do. Really phenomenal what we could do. And, I don't think if you know anything about Project Looking Glass and everything like that, I think that is very much possible. What was that film with Jodie Foster, where she went time traveling, or she went through dimensions and so forth, and then when she didn't actually go anywhere. But yeah, I've forgotten what it's called now. First Contact? Was it First Contact? Something along those sort of lines. But it plays in along the lines with that, So I think we can do absolutely amazing things. But if we give it over totally to technology without having the common sense in there, I think we will be beholden to technology, and then therefore that species of humanoids will be curtailed. It's the end, as it were, and so forth. And then the solar system will go through its dimensional change. The Earth will become Mars, Venus will become the Earth, Mercury will become Venus, and the Sun will create a new planet, and Mars will become the asteroid belt will become Jupiter, and so forth and so on. And that's what a dimensional change is within the solar system. That's major, obviously. That's why we see on Mars. Did you see that thing about Mars where they got, I've seen it over the last sort of like 25 years, but, it's come back up on the surface about the face on Mars, the pyramid on Mars, everything like that. Well, that is part of that knowledge and history that at some point Mars was like planet Earth. And it had those five chapters that we are going through on planet Earth. And it's like that's like a I guess you call it college or something like that, and it goes through. So each next college is going to be the College of Venus, So I think there's major truths that come out of all of that sort of thing, where I think we're going to understand that if we understand what happened on Mars, maybe it could be the savior of the human race now, that we will be able to go through a evolutionary transition or ascension, rather than a restrictive descension, as it were. So knowing about our history, I think, is really important, and taking it all from different sort of levels as well is really important, because it will situate us in what we've done before, so you don't want to repeat it. And that's what the karmic block's all about. This is why when we're born back into this body, we don't remember who we were before, because it will influence the life that we live. And it is proved to be detrimental to evolutionary, evolution. It's detrimental to that rather than productive. It's much better to go at something when you've got like when you don't have preconceptions. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, preconceptions. So yeah, there's so much to be learned, or there's not learned. I think there's so much to be understood, and once we can understand it, that's when we can really go through the roof in the way of technology and so forth. It's like, would you mind if they really knew exactly where you were every second of the day? I wouldn't mind if we're all on the same page. I don't mind that as such. I think it can be very beneficial, but unfortunately, the setup we have at the moment, I find it much more of an infringement than a liberation. It doesn't make me feel more secure. It makes me feel less secure in a way. Simply because we have control systems in place that is being controlled by the few. And I don't think that's a good idea. That doesn't take anything away from making money or having, finances or making money out of situations and stuff like that. We obviously need to get our head around money, that's for sure. But we need to start off with governance where, if you look at the situation, what is going on in the world at the moment, how many people are really controlling that? There's a very few minor. And when we think about it, the idea that our future is being determined by 5, 10 maximum. They've got the facade that, we got Parliament and everything like that, But in France, back in 2003, they voted not to go ahead with Europe. And the government turned around and said, no, well, thank you very much for your advice, but we're going to go ahead with it anyway. It's like, and there's many, we know as well as I do, you know what I mean? None of us are stupid anymore. A politician is going to tell you what you want to hear, but they're not, they don't have the history that proves that they actually do what they say they're going to do. So there is that whole aspect there that it's a bit like the Pied Piper, it's that sort of situation. I think that's what also people are waking up to, Lynn. People are waking up to that actually we have a lot more control over our future if we consciously engage in it in the physical world, such as governance and so forth, but also in the spiritual world, because that needs a lot of truths as well in it. I think we need to be very realistic about our spiritual side of things. And on our sort of like energetic sort of world as well. We need to be absolutely clear about that. It's like quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics are absolutely amazing, but some people took like one thing out of quantum mechanics and just ran with that, saying, nothing really exists, which is true but not true. And there is, we have to understand that. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to properly use quantum mechanics. So I think we need to get our heads around that as well. And that's all to do with the truth and the common sense evolution that we're going through. And it is a natural thing that is within us. And that common sense is the idea that we are all waking up to a certain frequency that sits right with us. And the more that we get to that point where we resonate together, the more that we can open up to the true evolution of the human spirit or species or, human entity, in a very, very spiritual sort of sense. What have you got any ideas of? Have you got any ideas of what you feel like it's going to be? What's going to be happening? I'm sure everybody feels it. Does everybody feel like there's, even since, even if you go far as back of the 60s, that whole sort of thing in the 60s, rock and roll sort of like, almost sort of like dazzled the world in the 50s to open it up, and everyone kind of went, well, yeah. And then in the 60s, then we had all these sort of like the Summer of Love and the civil rights movements and everything like that. And then in the 70s, we had the punk movement. You know what I mean? So it's all swings and roundabouts, but it's been coming in waves, and those waves, I think, are now indisputable. I think everybody feels it. Even people that you wouldn't think, and I come across people all the time that they kind of turn around and they sort of say, do you know what? I wouldn't have thought like that years ago. It's only recently that I'm willing to accept ideas, and a lot of people are changing the way in which we engage in life. I think in a really good way, in a really beautiful way. So we have to engage in it on an everyday life. And I think the most basic way at the moment is regards to believing everything that you hear on the internet, papers, telly, and start doing your own, investigation. And that's going to help. Then we can help the younger generation and say, okay, you're seeing all these things on the internet and everything like that, and ideas on that internet. I'll give you my point of view. And it's important to have your point of view. It's really important. And, it gives people a much balanced view. And I think this is, if anything, I'm like most people, well, I say like most people, like a lot of people, there's less in front of me than there is behind me. And the only way in which I can really help now is to help the youth have some form of, if they want it or not. If they want it, if they don't want it, they don't want it. It's fine. There's no problem. I'm not going to force it upon anyone. But you can help the youth to have a very balanced view at all engagements in advancements of, say, like technology and surveillance and governance and so forth, and helping youth to understand that. Because obviously I grew up in London where you had the conflict between the Irish and the English and so forth, in particularly in London. We had a lot of that, and when I talk to my kids about growing up with that and being taught in school about idiots trying to, blow things up. And the funny thing is afterwards, this is where truth helps us. We actually understood that a lot of it was done by, our own government. And it was, but we can't, this is another thing I wanted to say. And then I'll probably shut up after that. Don't look for retribution in anything. I look for truth. And then when it comes, be willing to turn around to the person and say, do you see that truth now? Do you see what we did wrong? And if that person says yes, and sincerely, then kind of go, right, now it's wrong. In the future, don't do it, don't do it again. I'm going to take away as well. I'm not going to give you any power so you can do that again. So, there is a certain common sense control over that sort of thing as well, but not having retribution out of someone because they got it wrong. Because if they didn't get it wrong, we wouldn't know what was the right thing to do. And that's in the way of energy. That's in the way of so many different things. You should be, I'm really thankful when people get it spectacularly wrong, because it makes for spectacular truths, which is what I'm all about. I love that sort of thing. we see the world so much more clearer when we have the truths coming out, you know. So, be prepared for this transition. It's happening now. It is really happening now. And that's why I wanted to sort of like just explain on the different sort of levels of where it's happening. So it's happening on a very, very long time scale of, say, like 200,000 years. It's also happening with pole shift on hundreds of thousands of years, you know, and it's happening at this time in a very short period of time, such as over the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks. The next 2 or 3 weeks, I think, is going to be, you know, I think we're by the time we get into April, I think we're going to be going, oh my words, oh my words. So, you know, be very, you know, be conscious of it and enjoy it, and enjoy the idea that we can build something so much better, but without having any retribution. I think that's a really bad thing. You know, it's just, I think that's what so hard for the majority of government not for the people. Oh, I missed it. You retracted it. Okay, sorry about that. I think it is hard for a lot of people. I think it's very hard for a lot of people. And I can understand why it's hard for a lot of people. I really can. You know, no one wants any sort of conflict whatsoever, really. It is really counterproductive. Very, very counterproductive. We know it's counterproductive for health. When you are annoyed and peed off, your immune system goes down and everything like that. So we know it's counterproductive on a physical level just to be annoyed and peed off and that sort of thing. But when we are, you know, joyous and open, that's when the immune system goes up, and that's got to everything works on the same sort of level. So, you know, it can work in the same way as sort of evolution, and I think that's possibly what what everybody needs to get across to everybody else in that sort of respect. So there you go. I've been whittling on for some time. Is there any last questions? Okay, those in power don't seem to stand for the people. No, I don't think they do. I don't think they do. But we willingly give it to them. So I don't want to blame them totally, if you know what I mean. You agree, do you? Hey, Coral, how you doing? Hope it's going down that way. It's harder for us to accept today. I think bygones be bygones, as it were. It's the only way we got to get through it. And this is where you come back to, you know, we've been taught in the past. If you listen to anything from Buddha or JC or you know, a lot of the sort of like spiritual sort of like masters, as it were. You call. We already know. That's the thing. We already know, really. And when we choose not to see that truth is when anger starts. And once we realise that truth, then we can realise that if that person's not, if that group of people or that person's not willing to accept the truth, stop feeding them. Stop giving them our power, basically, more than anything else. So I do think, we've, as much as, I don't think that it's harder for us to accept today, and I don't think they do stand, honestly, where in French, if you take parliament and you split it into two words, it's called parler mont, which basically means house of speaking lies. It's the only place that legally you can stand and lie to the entire nation under the guise of what's it called, for public safety, or the for security reasons, whatever it is. I've forgotten what the actual phrase is. I'm trying to get out of me. It's like sometimes we get treated like sort of like, you're not old enough to hear this, and you're not grown up enough to understand this, and it's a bit frustrating sometimes that people who tend to be in governance have not really had any other job than being in governance. And I find that a little bit worrying as well. That your full-time job has been just to control people around you. I feel like the power of love in the 60s threatened the power of control, so it had to be stopped. I don't know, but I'd hope that as a collective, we're a lot more aware now. Yeah, it was a strange time, that the summer of love. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of play at that time. You had the things that were that led up to it, which was JFK and stuff like that. And it was almost as if, like, you kind of going. I almost felt like it's kind of going, well, we've got to cut them a bit of slack, because if we keep putting the screws on them, they're going to turn against us. But there was a great deal of manipulation within the summer of love as well. And, and we know that now. And, it's like the 1% movement. Do you remember that after 2008, we had the 1% movement, and the financing of the 1% movement was the people who were financing it were the people that the 1% was protesting against. It was just so sort of ludicrous in a way. But that's the way in which you can have total power. Feed the side that is protesting against you, because then you have the control over them. And that's what we got to get our head around. We got to kind of stop that and become independent in a way. And that's got to come through like a common sense approach to things. And it's as I say, retribution is not a healthy way to go about it. Definitely not a healthy way to go about it. And I think we're much more, not that people weren't aware in the 60s, but we're aware in a different way now. I think we're very much more aware of it. Also, at the same time, I will say that if you learn to use your ability to see auras, people can't lie to you anymore. It's really difficult to lie against someone who can see an aura, because you can see people making it out. It's quite easy. It's quite easy, really. But I'm no one's judge, and sometimes, and quite a lot of times I'll let people lie to me, but I won't take anything on. But anyway, I'm talking way too much. Lovely to see you. If you haven't seen that video that I did in the tablet, do go and have a look at it. Understand that once we start talking about one thing in history, or even in the future, that it's tied to a lot of other things. So we have, I can investigate a topic within that tablet, but you've got to understand that investigation is going to take us in a lot of different areas of life. So let's say if we were going to do Göbekli Tepe, for example, you've got to understand that where we were in our consciousness, where we were in the evolutionary process of the planet, and in the 4 sort of chapters as well. We've got to put it all together, so it becomes more a guiding truth rather than just sort of myths. And we've got to be realistic about everything when we're doing it. But yeah, but please do go and have a look at it, and you'll be able to see how it sort of works as we read the template, and then we can do live readings of it. Why not? You know what I mean? According to a subject that each one of us want to, that each one of you would like to investigate, because it is. The tablet is it's like a truth bearer. It gives you a very cold look at light in the light of day. So and I think it will help us also to be realistic about what we're capable of doing with the energies we got at the moment and the consciousness we got at the moment. So do have a look at that. And tell me what you think, and tell me any subjects you'd like to talk about on the healing thing. What would you like to talk about next week? We can do that now. Has anyone got any? Do you want to talk about healing? Do you want to talk about chakras? Do you want to talk about world chakras? Or do you want to talk about spirits? Because I'm come across spirits all the time. And what do you want to talk about? We can talk about anything. It's more than welcome. Pleasure, Coral. Pleasure. Really is true. Pleasure. I thank everybody for, it's been a great journey over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's lovely to sort of like vaguely meet people. Still have to watch the tablet thing. Been busy. We'll watch tonight's sound. I hope it's been busy in a good sense, Coral. Hope you've been enjoying life. How's the family and everything like that? I hope that's going well. Hope your visits are going well. And your travelling's going well. Whenever you see it, Cole. If anybody's got any ideas of what you ever want to speak about, do leave it on any of the comments of the videos, because I do literally reply to every single comment myself. So anything you want. I cannot access my Akashic records, Tom. What do you want to access? That's the thing. Whenever you go into there, you've got to know what you're looking for. You've got to be really precise about what you're looking for. Otherwise, it's not window shopping, I think. Otherwise, it would just become so chaotic within the Akashic libraries. I think it's being all good down under, heading to tip clearing, out trash. Okay, good. Excellent. Good. Yeah, do that. Well up for that. So, Stacey, you can't access your Akashic records. Will you actually carry them by your side that are to you? All your Akashic library records is you keep your own version of it. And you'll find it's like the gun holster on the left-hand side. Okay? I know, it'd be great, wouldn't it, White Feather? I tell you, I would like to organise, the like maybe a Zoom thing that we can then, I'd put it out on a live, because unfortunately with these lives, YouTube doesn't recognise 75% of my views that I get on this live. That's why I have to delete it off, because otherwise they don't pay me for any of it. Not that they pay me anything anyway. They really don't pay me nothing. I don't get nothing out of YouTube. But it just feels like a cheat. So I will. This is why I upload this every time. But yeah, it'd be nicer to have a thumbs up. Never heard that interpretation of the word, or of the word. Interesting knowing how the word translate. Which word's that? Parliament? Is that Parliament? That's why French is used as the international language of administration and law, because it's so bloody precise. It really is precise. And that precision you can find in a lot of things, Len. A lot of things, when you're looking at French. Yeah. So yeah, it'd be better to do a thumbs up. It'd be good to do a Zoom, you know, but I've got to organise that and everything like that, and we've all got to be there at the same time and everything like that. So I'll try and get my head around it at some point. But yeah, it'd be lovely so we can do more than just a thumbs up. You know, I don't know if that's doing a thumbs up now. I can't actually see myself. I can only see the comments in front of me. Yeah. Great analogy. Would love to connect through Zoom. Yeah, it'd be great to connect through Zoom, Stacey. Did you know, what are you looking for in the Akashic Libraries? What are you looking for? Zoom would be great. I know, it would be great, wouldn't it? We'll have to set something up. What are you looking for, Stacey? Is it according to how you confront something? I don't want to go into personal details and stuff like that, obviously on YouTube and what have you. But is it to do with, say, like something that you keep repeating, or was it like not being able to break through a glass ceiling or something, or or is it just curiosity? I did past life with a friend of mine he's a past life therapist. And I did like massive, must have done 20 hours of meditation on it. So many different time zones. I know it will be difficult with Zoom. I know that. I know. Maybe I'll do 2 with 2 different time zones to try and get everyone covered. It'd be really nice. I know I have a great purpose, and delays. Well, this is the thing, Stacey. Yeah, my karmic block. As like most people of my age, has it no longer really works. So I've got nothing that I have to do. And so I have no real path, which is very frustrating as well. But at the same time, it liberates me and allows me to do what I've got to do. And just do it naturally. Because I can bring all those life understandings through me continually without having to go looking for them. So, and looking for my purpose, it changed. And I think it changed probably around about 30 years ago, for me personally. Because when I started doing healing, I could see people they were still finishing off bits and bobs on their karmic block. And, there's some people that have been coming to see me for 25 years. So I've seen their evolution, and over time, quite a short period of time, I saw that their karmic block they'd finished off what they had to do. So purpose becomes a different kettle of fish at that moment there, and it should be based upon what makes you feel good, and it doesn't necessarily kind of like. So I really love interacting with people. So that is what I love. So I could do that as a working in a hotel lobby, for example, if you know what I mean. Spirits would be a good chat. Always is. Always is a good chat, that, Lynn. Tell you. Always is a good chat. Some amazing things, really, that's happened with spirits. Yeah. I've got some... I've seen so many people. I reckon I could do 20 books out of anecdotal sort of situations. But yeah, spirits would be great. We could do a thing on NDE or actual dying process. Or did I do one on that? I'm not too sure. I'll have to check on it. But yeah, spirits would be great. But yeah, so finding your purpose, just to finish that off, sort of like Stacey, finding your purpose of what fulfills you. That is your purpose. and it's not. What fulfills me is being a masseur, for example, masseuse. What enthralls me is, let's just say, what enthralls me is the well-being of people, and that's where being a masseuse could be one aspect that I need to do in order to ensure that people feel good. So I think, finding what you feel like, what feels good for you, and what is, what you would like to do, basically. And I think you'll be very not only content with what you do, but also find that within that there is a major purpose of consciously co-creating that future. And that's possibly what our purpose is now, collectively. But it ain't easy. And that comes down to a lot of needs and wants, and there's a lot of things that go into finding your purpose, So yeah, but it can be a little bit frustrating, really. But we're trying to sort out a Zoom, and yeah, Coral, I hear you with the different time zones. I try and get 2 times. I've got one of my sons in your part of the world, Coral, by the way. So I'm getting used to being in Australia time. So yeah, I could easily do a live. We could easily do a Zoom that 2 Zooms that sort of like covers the time zones. But spirits would be a good chat. Yeah, we'll get into that. Get into ghosts and stuff like that. And houses as well. I do a lot of work on houses where there's spirits involved and stuff like that. Dowsing and doing a bit of geomancy, what they call geomancy. Yeah. Yes, Parliament. Yeah, exactly. Parliament. Yeah, there's loads of words that sort of goes like that. Thank you very much, Stacey. Really do appreciate you being here. Appreciate the question and being straight, which is really great. And finding purpose is, beautiful. Yeah, that's a real Australian thing to say, isn't it? Beautiful, that is. Yeah. So we'll get something sorted with the Zooms at some point in the near future. So there you go, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you get the best out of all of this sort of stuff. My purpose, Stacey, is just to convey my view of the world, so then it hopefully helps everybody to engage in the world on a much more profound and conscious level, basically. Yeah. Bye, Coral. Lovely to see you. Bye, everybody. I will see you soon. Thanking you very much for being here. Don't forget about the messages from energy on Wednesday. I'll see you there for that, and also the readings on Thursday and Friday. Thanking you very much for sharing the videos and everything like that. It's absolutely beautiful. Lovely to see. I will all see you soon. In the meantime, don't forget, life should be fun. So all that's left for me to say is, please do enjoy.